What's good, fam? Kendrick Lamar just officially cleared out the record books and left Drake crying in a courtroom over a case that was dead on arrival. February 1st, 2026 served as the definitive moment at the 68th Annual Grammy Awards, where the crown became a permanent fixture on Kendrick's head for good. 5 massive trophies landed in his hands that night, pushing his career total to a staggering 27 Grammys. By moving past Jay-Z, who previously sat on 25 wins, Kendrick claimed the title of the most awarded hip-hop artist to ever grip a microphone. This victory represents a total takeover of the history books that nobody can argue with anymore, especially since Jay-Z has functioned as the benchmark for greatness for an entire generation. Seeing Doc climb that mountain and plant his flag at the very top signals that the era of Kendrick is nowhere near finished. The energy in the room shifted when officials announced Best Rap Album for GNX because everyone realized they were watching a legend surpass his idols in real time. Winning Record of the Year for the track Luther featuring SZA really finished the job, proving that Kendrick owns the entire mainstream conversation whenever he decides to drop. While the OVO camp likely prayed for a quiet night, Kendrick made sure the Recording Academy acknowledged him as the undisputed king of this generation. Jay-Z held that specific record for a long time, so Kendrick snatching it while still in his prime is the kind of legacy move that Drake could only dream of pulling off. Drake has spent years chasing numbers and trying to convince us that charts are the only thing that matters. But Kendrick just showed that an artist can hold the charts, the respect, and the trophies all at once. While Kendrick collected gold on that stage, Drake occupied himself with a massive loss in the legal system that feels even more embarrassing than the diss tracks. U.S. District Judge Vargas finally weighed in on that weak defamation claim Drake tried to push regarding the Not Like Us lyrics, and the outcome matched exactly what we all expected. The judge completely rejected the idea that Kendrick or UMG did anything illegal by calling Drake a certified pedophile on the biggest song of the year. This ruling effectively kills any hope the Toronto rapper had of using the law to scrub his reputation after Kendrick dragged it through the mud in front of the whole world. It turns out that a man cannot just sue someone for being better at rapping, and Judge Vargas ensured that everyone understood the difference between a factual allegation and a lyrical masterpiece. Judge Vargas used the ruling to clarify that the certified pedophile line represents legally protected opinion rather than a statement of fact that someone can sue over. The court explained that lyrics in a high-stakes rap battle function as part of a bitter verbal exchange, meaning a reasonable listener would never think they were hearing a literal police report. This victory protects the right of artists to go at each other's necks without worrying about a sensitive billionaire running to a lawyer every time his feelings get hurt. Drake really tried to argue that this qualified as defamation, but the judge saw right through the play and decided that the bars were just part of the game. The judge essentially told Drake to go back to the booth and fix his pen instead of trying to hunt for a settlement because his ego took a hit. One of the most desperate parts of the amended complaint appeared when Drake tried to accuse UMG of a conspiracy because they promoted Not Like Us during the Super Bowl and the Grammys. Judge Vargas pointed out that this is simply how the music industry works, and promoting a hit song during major cultural events is standard business practice. It looks like Drake attempted to punish his own label for recognizing greatness, but the judge refused to let him use the court to settle a petty grudge. The fact that Drake even included these events in his legal battle shows how much Kendrick's success is actually getting under his skin lately. He could not handle the reality that the industry he thought he controlled was turning his own label against him to promote a song that called him out on his ish asterisk T. Drake is watching his whole year fall apart while Kendrick keeps moving like the untouchable final boss of the entire industry. Judge Vargas essentially ruled that Kendrick possesses every right to share his thoughts on Drake's character, especially since those bars dropped during a historic beef. Drake's legal team tried claiming that Kendrick and UMG teamed up to tank his brand, but the court basically told him that a catchy song shouldn't be able to destroy a whole empire. This ruling now acts as a massive shield for any rapper wanting to keep things real in the future without worrying about some frivolous lawsuit from a guy with deep pockets. Seeing the two directions these careers are heading feels absolutely wild when you step back and look at the scoreboard. Kendrick is currently shattering records that stood for decades and proving he belongs at the top, but Drake is still out here fighting a losing battle against words that the fans already believe. Kendrick holds the trophies and the respect of the entire academy, leaving Drake with nothing but a dismissed lawsuit and the cold realization that he cannot sue his way back into being liked. This legal loss serves as a clear signal that the court of law finally agrees with the public about who really won this war. Losing in federal federal court didn't humble him enough because Drake decided to set $1 million on fire just a few days later during Super Bowl 60. On February 8th of 2026, he jumped on social media to brag about a 7-figure bet on the New England Patriots, but the universe clearly had other plans for his bank account. The Seattle Seahawks absolutely smoked the Patriots with a final score of 29-13, and that embarrassment brought every single Drake curse meme back to life. Everything he touches lately seems to turn into dust, which usually happens when you try to flex your money while your reputation is taking hits from every single direction. The most interesting part of that entire weekend had nothing to do with the money he lost on the game, but rather the stage he felt too afraid to walk on. Multiple reports confirmed that Drake actually turned down a massive offer to appear as a guest during Bad Bunny's halftime show at Levi's Stadium. Kendrick already dominated the Super Bowl stage back in 2025 with a performance people still talk about, and Drake likely knew he could never match that level of energy. He might have been worried that the crowd would turn on him or that he would just look like he was desperately trying to catch up with Dot. Instead of stepping up and facing the music, he stayed tucked away while Bad Bunny ran the entire show without him. Seeing a man who used to live for these moments go into a decline this fast is wild, but the fear of being outshined by Kendrick's ghost is clearly guiding his every move. Drake could have used that massive platform to change his image, but declining the invite suggests he is still stuck in a defensive crouch. While Kendrick is busy celebrating 27 Grammys and making history, Drake is sitting in some VIP suite watching $1 million vanish while he hides from the spotlight. On February 5th of 2026, the desperation began spilling out even before the big game when DJ Academics mysteriously acquired a snippet from Drake's upcoming album, Iceman. This leak felt calculated because it happened right as the industry prepared for a major release from one of his former peers, and in the snippet, Drake launched attacks at people he called double agents, while even going after his own label. After alleging he gave them 15 years of his soul just for them to turn around and do him dirty when things got difficult, he finally realized the corporate machine he dedicated his whole career to building doesn't actually have his back now that the vibes have shifted. He acts bitter and paranoid out here. That is exactly how you expect someone to behave once they realize the throne is gone. The pathetic nature of this leak really showed when it landed just hours before February 6th, the day J. Cole dropped his massive double disc album titled The Fall Off. Critics and fans immediately blamed Drake for using the leak to try and overshadow Cole's moment because he can't tolerate not being the center of attention. And while Cole provided a project people waited years for, Drake tried to suck the oxygen out of the room with a 30-second clip of him complaining about his contract. Executing a move like that on someone who was supposed to be your brother in this rap game is nasty. His own interests always come first. A controversial snippet probably seemed like a good way to keep people talking about him instead of focusing on the actual music Cole was putting out. Tracks like What If on the new album gave J. Cole a way to finally explain why he elected to exit the beef between Drake and Kendrick, and he handled it with a lot more grace than Drake could ever muster. Peace appears to follow Cole's decision to step back and preserve his legacy, but Drake is still out here crashing out and burning bridges with the people who assisted him in reaching the top. Glaringly obvious to anyone paying attention is the contrast between Cole moving on and Drake remaining stuck in the mud. Drake remains stuck in place. Cole is finishing his story on his own terms while Drake sabotages his friends just to stay relevant for another 24 hours. Pressure from the West Coast clearly has him behaving completely out of character and looking more vulnerable than we have ever seen him. An hour of Drake whining about double agents and label politics on the Iceman album might be the final nail in the coffin for his run at the top, and fans are definitely tired of the victim narrative from a guy who has enjoyed every advantage in the industry for over a decade. Kendrick didn't just demolish him in a rap battle, but he broke his spirit to the point where he is now fighting with the people who write his checks, and that's when it became clear that the loyalty he always bragged about was just a thin veil for business interests. Losing control of his camp is obvious now. Drake plays a lonely game. Kendrick is being honored by the entire industry as the new gold standard, while the hits stop landing and the money stops moving for the people who used to ride for Drake. Coincidence doesn't explain the timing of everything this week because it reveals two completely different trajectories, and that's when you see Kendrick standing on the summit of the rap world with 27 Grammys and the law on his side, while Drake drops millions on bets and exposes his own music to spite J. Cole. Handling success versus handling a fall from grace is a masterclass here, which meant Kendrick remained quiet and let the work speak for itself, while Drake can't stop making noise. The silence clearly terrifies him. Every move he makes right now feels like a frantic attempt to snatch the steering wheel of a car that is already halfway off the cliff, and he might think think the Iceman Project is going to rescue him. But if the energy is anything like that snippet, he is just going to be digging his own grave even deeper. Summer plans appear to be Drake's way of hunting for a global distraction to wash away that historical beating he just suffered during the Grammy ceremony. FIFA President Gianni Infantino dropped a massive hint regarding the first ever World Cup halftime show scheduled for July 19, 2026, and the industry views this as a blatant attempt to mirror the cultural dominance Kendrick displayed at the Super Bowl in 2025. It feels as if the boy realized he cannot hang with Dot on a lyrical level, which meant he decided to use the entire planet as a shield to hide those recent losses. Industry observers already point out that a single performance will not do anything to close the gap Kendrick just created in the record books. Surpassing Jay-Z with 27 Grammys represents a legacy that stays forever, but a corporate-sponsored soccer performance is just a temporary flash in the pan that people will eventually ignore. Drake chose the global pop star route because his status as a rapper is effectively dead, and that shows a massive shift in how the culture views his whole movement. Kendrick never needed a soccer tournament to prove he was the king when his music did the talking in the middle of a literal war. If the OVO leader actually takes that stage, he will be performing for a crowd that might not even know about the certified pedophile bars, and that is exactly the kind of uneducated audience he needs right now. Running away from the hip-hop community to find people who haven't seen the receipts is a weak move that everyone can see through. Kendrick used his acceptance speech to deliver a masterclass on staying grounded while standing on top of the world, and he made sure to emphasize that this culture belongs to the people instead of the highest bidder. This represented a savage shot at a business model that relies on massive brand deals to stay relevant, which meant the boy looked like a corporate mascot, while Kendrick stood there with 27 trophies he earned through pure skill. He spoke about being authentic to the struggle in the streets, and that changed the energy in the room because it highlighted how Drake moves like a CEO worried about quarterly earnings. Kendrick is moving with the spirit of a revolutionary who actually cares about the art form, but the other side is just chasing a check. Looking at the final tally for this week reveals some of the nastiest work in the history of rap beef, and Kendrick Lamar is currently sitting on 27 trophies alongside a legal victory that confirms his lyrics are protected speech. He holds the momentum and the respect of his peers as the most awarded hip-hop artist in history, but the other side of the board looks like a total disaster. Drake is stuck with a leaked snippet that everyone hates, a dismissed defamation case that makes him look like a snitch, and $1 million gambling debt from a Super Bowl bet that went south. This is a total blowout in every category. There is no way for the OVO camp to spin these losses as anything other than a catastrophe. Trying to use the legal system to silence a poet represented a move that backfired so hard it actually turned those lyrics into something more powerful. A federal judge ruled those bars became legally protected speech, which meant they now sat etched into the historical record forever. Drake thought his money could rewrite the narrative, but the law told him he has to sit there and take the loss just like everyone else. This defeat will follow him for the rest of his career because it proves he could not handle the heat when the lights were the brightest. Drake finally ran into a man who doesn't care about his connections. Kendrick showed the world that you cannot buy a win against a man who is actually playing for the love of the game. Watching Drake hemorrhage cash on massive sports bets while his rap career slides downhill gives his haters all the fuel they need. That $1 million loss on the Patriots might not empty his bank account, but it absolutely destroys his aura and makes him look like a total loser. The Drake curse is back. Bad energy started bleeding into his business deals and those messy legal battles as a result. Nobody can take him seriously as a rap king when he spends every single week collecting public losses like they are Pokemon cards. Kendrick spends his days being hailed as a cultural hero, which leaves Drake looking like a warning sign about what happens when your ego outgrows your actual skill. That Grammy win for Kendrick represented more than just a trophy because it stood as a massive victory for the whole West Coast and proved lyricism still carries weight. Lyricism still matters here. He showed the world that a corporate puppet lifestyle is not required for success, which meant fans will always prefer raw authenticity over a manufactured product. Toronto is not getting that crown back anytime soon after this week, reminded everyone exactly where the power resides now, and that's when the hardware arrived to back up his legacy. Legal wins showed his strength while Drake sat stuck with a leaked snippet and a list of excuses. This massive gap between them keeps growing, and it really feels like Kendrick is just hitting his stride in this new era of hip-hop dominance. Booking every stadium on the planet or headlining every major sports event will not help Drake outrun the cold truth that Kendrick laid out for everyone to see. A choice was made. The culture finalized a decision to stand with the man of the people instead of the guy who only cares about corporate brand deals. Between that crushing legal defeat and the record-breaking Grammy run, we are looking at the two main pillars that define this current era of music. Kendrick set a brand new standard for excellence, which makes Drake a relic from a time when we let streaming numbers trick us into ignoring the art. Our guy Lamar currently rewrites the history books with his own hand, while Drake looks more like a tiny footnote in a chapter about a war he should have avoided. The old era officially died, and the result was our new king standing tall with 27 pieces of Grammy gold to prove he earned that crown.